welcome to podcast number 3. As we all know, good things come in threes. We know that. Podcasts come in threes now. 3 topics that we like to talk in these podcasts, and 3, what should we call ourselves for this one? Wise men who like to talk about all things materials, all things particle and crystal and element related, because we're geeks who really love the science behind the products that we sell here at Malvern Panalytical, really interested in how they're applied, and quite frankly, wherever we are in life, be we at work or at home or even when we sleep, we can't stop talking about it. I think that's right, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, totally.
So welcome to the Big on Small podcast again, and to me, Paul Kipax, we've got Steve.
Welcome.
And we've got Taco as well. And we're taking a festive theme. We're heading towards Christmas. And we wanted to explain why in the run-up to the holiday season, the Christmas season, there are loads of applications that Malvern Panalytical get involved in. And so we've all gone off into our respective sources and we've been researching for years and years. And we're going to bring these stories to you now about how Malvern Panalytical helps you at Christmas, or how what we do relates to things that you may find around the festive table. So I think we'll start. Let's make a change. Taco, what have you been finding out over the last month?
Yeah, so I've been diving into biodegradability, and I thought, wouldn't be very nice to put a biodegradable device in a carrot for the reindeer, so you can see on your app when you're somewhere else if your reindeer is really eating the carrot, and if the carrot is going to be properly digested, and the reindeer will probably even be enhanced when eating it. So it's a fantastic thing. I'm going to talk about biodegradable circuit boards for reindeers and other things.
So you're saying that you've got a technology that you found that might allow us to track where Santa really is as he's delivering presents around the world. Okay, tell us more. I'm interested now.
Yeah, so it goes like this, guys, and for the audience. So there is quite a fantastic development going on for biodegradable computers, and that's the main goal. And of course, it's nice for tracking stuff, but it's also for all kind of sensors you can put in there. And you can ask yourself, why is that important? Now, one of the important events that happens in surgery, but we all know Neil Armstrong, the guy who went to the moon and came back, and he had a heart problem. So he got a new heart. So it went very well. But when he died, he died not from the new heart, but he died when they wanted to remove some wires from that new heart. So that is a very sad story. But they thought we should only put things in people and don't have to take them out, because when you have to take them out, there's a big risk. And you can think of many applications there. So it's post-surgical inflammation monitoring in your brain, in your blood vessels, mechanical forces. When I broke my wrist during the holidays, if I could see, it's pretty painful, by the way. Yeah. But if you could, now I have to go to an hospital. But if the doctor could see offline how it is doing, just read it out, and then say, okay, it's done. You're well done. And even not only the bones, but also the ligaments and all the other stuff. So
this sounds amazing. But what's it got to do with carrots? May I ask?
Yeah. So you have to imagine that if you implant biodegradable computers into living, or more or less living, because a carrot is probably not really living anymore, but when you're going to eat it because you took it out of the ground. But you can see, for instance, how fresh it stays. Are there any interactions with that carrot that can trigger many chemical reactions going over in decaying processes? So if you can find the right trigger to see now it's still edible and now it's not anymore, that is also a part of use of that. Yeah,
which stops food waste.
Exactly, it's food waste. But there is. But can I tell you what you need to do to make a biodegradable electronic device? Because what you need to have. So we all know the 3 components actually you only need. It's insulators, conductors, and semiconductors. And then you can make transistors and all of that. And all these things already exist in the materials we have today. Because insulators from biodegradable materials like silk, like spider, yarns, they spin. Starch, gelatin, polyvinyl alcohols, they all exist. For conductors, that's even more easy. There are a lot of edible conductors like zinc oxide, manganese oxide, gold, silver. That's already known. But the most difficult ones were the semiconductor part. So what they find now, if they can print very, very, very thin layers of silicon, it dissolves in the body. And that's the recently found trigger to say, hey, we can still use silicon. We know very well how that works with silicon and semiconductors, but we can use it in the body because it dissolves. It is 5 nanometers per day that the layers of silicon acid will go off. And so if you are very thin, it will dissolve. And silicon is like eating sand. It doesn't harm you anyway. So. Okay. And that is exciting, of course, because then you can do a lot of things with materials which are bendable, biodegradable, and there are examples of biodegradable pacemakers already. They last for 5 weeks or 10 weeks, or you can tune the thickness with the silicon, so you don't have to take them out anymore, because that's where injuries, inflammations, and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing is they are using more and more silk. That's also like a yarn from an insect or a spider yarn, because you can tune the crystallinity, and there we come with XRD. You can tune the crystallinity to make it more or less dissolvable in your body. And when it dissolves, it breaks down, and there's no harm. So I went crazy with so many ideas.
So, and this could be the future of diagnostics, both for short-term diagnostics, if you've got a health condition which you need to be explained, or for long-term treatment of people. So for heart disease, or maybe if I become deafer than I really am, there'll be a way of treating me, that sort of thing. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And we come in. And where do we come into this as Malvern Panalytical then? I think you've already mentioned XRD.
Two things, of course. We can do for the conductors. We can determine the elemental composition of how much gold, silver, manganese, all these biocompatible elements are there. So we can measure that part. And the crystallinity ratio between amorphous and crystalline in the very interesting polymers of spider yarns and silk, we can measure very well. There's a whole lot of research going on at the moment as we speak with XRD.
Wow, so we can understand the functionality of these materials. We can understand how you create a semiconductor, almost a circuit or a doped material, and from that, how you design these amazing mini machines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So we're going to be eating electronics. Steve, what else could we be eating over Christmas, do you think?
But from Christmas that those of us with children, they have a list, and they generally give us a list of the wants. So I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want to talk about spices.
No, okay. About spices. No, if you burst into song now, it's the end of the podcast series.
I know, it's not. But yeah, because spices in this season now, from kind of October through to Christmas, there's an awful lot of spices that get used in many different forms. I mean, it goes back really to medieval times, where spices were incredibly expensive. I mean, even now, saffron is more expensive than gold, but it's a case of and because Christmas was considered to be a feast, you'd bring out the heavy guns, you'd bring out the expensive things, so spices would get used at Christmas. But if you think about, and there's a great tradition of Christmas baking and on Christmas spice foods all over the world. In the UK, we obviously have Christmas cake and mince pies and Christmas pudding. In Europe, there's a grand tradition of gingerbread, Lebkuchen, and in there's even there is saffron buns in Sweden. Use at Christmas. So there's all different spices.
And in Cornwall as well, may I say. Sorry,
Yep.
that's spoken. Everyone who's listening to this podcast, I'm a proud Cornishman. If you want to know what that means, then send me an email. But carry on, Steve.
Mulled wine is another one.
Ooh.
And then if you think about it being particularly Dickensian, Scrooge takes Bob Cratchit at the very end of A Christmas Carol for a drink of smoking bishop. Smoking bishop was actually a kind of like a lemon which had loads of cloves in it, which you kind of like burn slightly to singe it, and it would then be put as a kind of mulled wine with mace, ginger, cinnamon, and cloves. It's not out of fashion these days. It's been out of fashion these days, and there was all sorts of different variants, such as smoking pope and with different alcohol and slightly different ingredients. But they're actually out there. So you think we've really got different types of spices. You've got whole spices. You tend to kind of add they've got extremely large particle size. You just add and just imparts a bit of flavour. You put peppercorns in bread sauce in English cooking, and you just let the thing seep a little bit, but you always sift them out. And then what do you do to increase the surface area and impart flavour? You grind. So you grind spices, and then the size for that is a couple of hundred microns. You can measure that by laser diffraction. Some people do. So some people also measure it on sieves. So that's where we're actually from there. And then you've got a bigger surface area. So you don't need as much to get a similar levels of flavor. Because if you put the same kind of weight as whole spices of ground spices in your Christmas cake, it would be inedible. It wouldn't be particularly pleasant. And when you see spices are obviously quite attractive. Some of them are quite nice colors. Sometimes the colors, though, can be too nice. In some parts of the world, in some parts of the world, turmeric is made to look more attractively yellow, and by adding lead chromate to it, and paprika is made to look more attractively red by adding lead oxide to it.
Is that wise to add lead to foodstuffs?
Generally not. The acceptable safety level is generally 2.8. It varies country to country, but it's generally of the order of 2.5 to about 10 milligrams per kilogram. Some of these in various countries, some of these added spices with loads of extra lead in has been 48,000 milligrams per kilogram.
Whoa.
Which, if you had exposed to that in a reasonable detail, that can cause serious problems.
My goodness, you might as well chew a lead pipe if you're doing that. Sure, my goodness.
Exactly. So that gives us and of course we can detect the levels of lead in a lot of these compounds by XRF. But of course, sometimes the adulteration isn't on purpose. Sometimes it is by accident. Sometimes you have things like you'll get some minerals. Some spices are in slightly more volcanic areas, and you can get things like cadmium in cocoa, and which if you want a glass of hot chocolate, you don't want any cadmium in it. And there's safe levels of cadmium from there, but that can be naturally in the cocoa pod. But again, you can detect it by through elemental detection. So that's the big spices. That's the medium spices. What about nano spices? Well, yes, they are also a thing. But there you're generally not talking cooking so much. Nano spices have more sort of different uses. And if we take common Christmas cake spices, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and ginger, and even turmeric, they are all used in their nano form for a variety of different medical applications. And generally, it's often as an emulsion. And the emulsion is stabilized. Sometimes they're even some of the stuff I was reading today even quoted me their zeta potential. So so you're measuring the zeta potential of these essential oil emulsions.
So these are I take it they're very highly active molecules, are they? So they have indeed quite broad application.
Nano cinnamon is used in orthodontic adhesives for antibacterial properties. Wow. Nano cloves are also antimicrobial. And nano nutmeg is an insect repellent. And the curcumin, which is the active ingredient of turmeric, is used in inflammation. And
I wonder whether this accounts for why they became popular. Actually, if you go back in time, that the addition of the spices, yes, the taste was important, but initially there were benefits in terms of the food formulation and its longevity that were recognised first. That would be interesting. That
undoubtedly.
Wow.
I mean, you reading some of this, it also links back to things like traditional Chinese medicine and similar things for that. I mean, one of our colleagues gives turmeric a lot to her horses. And when you first told me that, I said, that's not what I thought currying horses meant. But yes. And finally, yes, a nano ginger is a good treatment for schistosomiasis, also known as bilharzia, as this kind of a parasitic infection, and it's a good treatment for that. So yeah, so spices have all sorts of uses beyond your Christmas baking.
All right, and I take it this means that Christmas food is healthier than we've been allowing for, Steve? Is that the
everything's in
possible case?
Everything is in moderation. But of course, if anyone wants to burn off some of their Christmas calories, Paul and I will be happy to take you on a turkey trot. If any of our UK-based colleagues.
Well, maybe not so much running here, but yeah, we're all crazy about running on this podcast. Maybe that's the next thing we should do. So, Steve, thank you very much. So,
thank you.
The ingredients of our food now, we could have a computer to tell us how healthy we are. We can have health benefits from the spices. So I was thinking, what do I follow that up with for Christmas? So I thought maybe think about the turkey, particle size of corn, and the healthiness of turkeys and how quickly they fatten up. No. How about the particle size of explosives and the bang from crackers? Maybe. How about the particle size of custard powder? Not as an explosive, although you may have done that at school, but also the effect that has on food formulations. But I thought, no, after all that eating, Steve, what happens next on Christmas Day or when we're celebrating? Television.
People go to sleep in front of a television.
Exactly. And television, in particular in the UK, we are all, of course, very much waiting for the King's speech to appear on television as good Englishmen, I'm sure, or for all the reruns of The Sound of Music and The Italian Job, which is probably what I wait for more than the King's speech. That for another podcast as to why. But I was thinking televisions, what we want is the most vibrant reproduction of the image as possible to keep our attention so that we don't fall asleep. And that comes down to how the colours and the image is created, and a new technology for that, which recently was associated with the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. So with Boendi, Bruce and Ekimov, they got the Nobel Prize for Chemistry for quantum dots. Now, quantum dots, they're very small-sized particles, normally under 100 nanometers in size, although that depends on the chemistry. And they were found to have very, very odd behavior in that the size of the crystal of the material that makes up the quantum dots changes the color of the material. So you can precisely tune the color produced by these quantum dot particles by changing their particle size, which makes it a perfect application for Malvern Panalytical. Not only that, the structure of the quantum dots, so they can be multi-layer materials, or it can be a combination of an inorganic material, an organic ligand that is covalently bonded to the surface. There we can give information on the structure, and so from that you can predict very precisely what the color will be. And this all is down to quantum effects. The size of these quantum dots, you can think about it as you can start to change the size of the quantum box, the electron in the box, and you can make it either smaller or larger. All right. So what you can change is the energy band between the valency band and the next energetic band. I've forgotten what it's called. Come back to me, physics. And you can change this energy band according to the size because they're so constrained. And so it was an amazing discovery and opening up a wide and vivid range of colours that are available. And of course, that has very natural application to television screens. And so the latest television screens are QLED screens where these quantum dots are used to give a much more vivid colours. So if you really want to know how blue Julie Andrews' dress was as she skipped over the verdant greenery of the Alps, escaping at the end of The Sound of Music, then, and I hope I haven't spoiled the plot for people who haven't seen it there, but yes, you need to watch that movie on a QLED screen. And when you do that, Malvern Panalytical were really greatly involved in the chemistry and the formulation of those quantum dot materials. So there you go. We bring you a vivid television screen to fall in front of after your turkey.
But there are many applications of quantum dots, Paul, also again in polymers, because I have to speak polymers, of course. Yeah. And one of the things is that, have you heard of that application that you can put quantum dots in polymers to trace their origin and the recyclability? Ooh.
No, I hadn't heard that. So you're saying that if I labeled with a particular quantum dot with a certain wavelength, I could sort of work out where it came from or how it was recycled?
Yeah, so you can make like a QR code with your quantum dots. And if you read it out with a very simple device, you get a binary signal back based on the places of your frequencies of the quantum dots, which you can translate into numbers. And these numbers can relate then to who produced the polymer, and even the breakdown. If it's not totally working, you can probably work out how many recycling cycles the polymer had. But there are, of course, always challenges with these kind of things.
Oh, no. But that's really interesting. So you can trace, because I think one of the early applications of quantum dots was in marking materials. So if you have, I don't know, a church in the middle of nowhere in the UK, they often have this, I think it's called Alpha Dot. I hope that isn't a brand name. If it is, I'm sure there are other quantum dot suppliers that are available as well, where you can mark materials like all the expensive, stuff on the altar. And if it's stolen, then that it came from your church building. So I think that's been around for a while. There's also a link into the applications we've been talking about earlier, and that you can use quantum dots for biological imaging. And so you can functionalize quantum dots for take up in particular types of cells. And then when you excite them with UV radiation, then the cells will glow. And that's then used to detect cancer cells or understand whether a given targeted medicine is targeting the right cells during development of treatments and so on. So really linking back to the application you send. Yes,
I see. So when you buy quantum dot labeled sweets, which will make your ear glow red, and you've taken it in as a child, and your mother or father can see then, these children have eaten the sweets already before they were used, and then because their ears are glowing, or something.
And maybe you're onto something. Maybe we've determined that it was Rudolph who ate all the carrots.
Exactly.
Because the material collected in Rudolph's nose and it glowed red. So Santa Claus was an early user of quantum dots. Who would have thought?
I think so too.
There you go. And the culprit, Rudolph. So sometimes not always the hero of the story, it would appear. Hey?
Exactly.
Guys, what an amazing journey through science. Yeah, again, I've enjoyed that conversation. I hope you have.
Yeah, I think you had fun as usual.
Yeah, and thank you to our audience for tuning in again. I hope you've enjoyed our festive look at material science and the applications here at Malvern Panalytical. As ever, we're interested in your feedback, comments on what we talk about, particularly if we got something wrong. We're really interested in that. But also ideas. If you've got ideas of material and particular applications that that you're involved in and we could talk about on this podcast, we'd be really interested in hearing from you. So please send those ideas in. Keep sharing your comments. Otherwise, it's goodbye from Taka.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Steve.
Goodbye, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me. Thank you very much for tuning in this time round. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.